Okay, I think we're live. We're going to let it breathe just for a moment here. And we're going to cross our fingers that everything connects okay to Facebook, because the guys last night were having some Facebook problems. Let's see. Come on, baby. Looks good. Come on, big Facebook. Okay, there we go. One last little connecto. And we'll get the party started. I think we're good. So, welcome in, everybody. This is a special edition of the Mile High Huddle podcast. As you can see, I'm your host, Tez Johnson. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. And we are, which one? That's the main one. Sorry, guys. I gotta remove this real quick. Yeah, remove. And save changes. Sorry, guys. We're still at the Combine, and it's been a phenomenal week. Really interesting. We've heard a lot. And, the last 2 days, I would say, though, Zach, have been the most interesting. Look, it's always fun to hear from Peyton and Peyton, the Peytons. You can't quite say it again because, we won't get into that. But the last 2 days, it's been interesting to find out from these prospects which have not only spoken or met with the Broncos, Zach, but who have had formal interviews with the Broncos. So, first things first we should talk about is Ashton Jeanty, who, surprise, surprise, Zach, you had the story for us, has had a formal interview with the Broncos.
A lot of running backs have so far. I think every major running back that's in this draft class at some point has met or will meet with Denver. Ashton Jeanty, the RB1 of the draft class, being among them. He had a formal sit down with Denver, one of the Broncos' official visits at the Combine. He was asked about how the visit went. He said he met with Lou Ianni, the Broncos running back coach, a couple other members of the staff. Sean Payton was not present for the meeting, so read into that what you will. But he also said he would have no problem playing for the Broncos if he's still on the board, number 20 overall.
Exactly. And unfortunately, just real quick, sorry, and I'm just going to not talk about this again. It's not letting us connect to the main Facebook page. So hopefully the regulars find the stream on the Mile High Huddle podcast Facebook page, which is why we always tell you guys, make sure you're following us on both. But yeah, it was interesting. I want to pull this up. So first of all, actually, let me ask you this, Zach. Why do you think Sean Payton, I would estimate they would view the Jeanty interview. Look, they only get 45, so each one is precious in its own right. I don't think they use them or waste them, so to speak, purely on smoke screen effect. So do you think Payton wasn't in there because perhaps they don't really think Jeanty's going to be there?
It's got to be the case. What else could it really be? Maybe Payton was sitting in on another meeting at the time, Chad, and there's only so much time he can divvy up, but there's really no realistic shot based on what we've heard, what we've seen, based on how he's going to perform in the pre-draft process, that Jeanty is going to be there at number 20. Now, the Broncos can trade up, and they have to do their due diligence, and they have to meet with the top guy at the position, but I would assume it's because, partly at least, they don't believe he's actually going to be there, like Jeanty himself said, Chad.
That's true. He did say that. By the way, I'm going to really quick, I'll do that next time you're talking. I'm going to grab the other stream and drop it on the big Facebook page. But, oh my gosh, we got Mr. Producer in the house. It's a Friday night, dude. What's going on, brother? It was interesting also hearing from some of the backs today. And I got to tell you, Zach, you and I both you've always been pretty strong on Trey Henderson. I've grown on him, or I should say he's grown on me as the weeks and the days have inched by, getting closer to the draft. But hearing him talk today, I got to tell you, man, he really impressed me, just the way he carries himself, his kind of football character, so to speak. But unfortunately, we kind of got a little bit of an ambiguous answer on whether or not he's met with the Broncos. I think my intuition based on what he said was that, yeah, he's met with them, but we can't say it with absolute perfect knowledge from things we heard ourselves because it was kind of ambiguous, which I can explain later, but I'd be shocked if they didn't meet with him.
It's also tough to make out what they're saying with all the other podiums and stuff happening. But yeah, the Broncos have met with, I think it was 10 at last count, unofficially, running back prospects in the draft class. It's funny, when you came over to the media workshop, you came up to me and said, I think I have a new draft crush, and that would be Trey Henderson. And it's true. He's well-spoken, articulate. He's mature, and he's also a damn good football player. So if he's the plan B, if they don't get Genty, I say it again, I am 100% on board with that.
What's up to the Papa Bear, David McElrath? What's good, brother? Thank you for the super chat, my friend.
Thank you,
I know
David.
you guys, obviously, you're not used to seeing us on Friday nights, but you might start seeing more of us on Friday nights. We'll have some interesting announcements on that front in the not too distant future. But thank you for the super chat, brother. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country. # Let's go, Bo." Speaking of Bo, I mean, the Broncos have met formally again. A finite number of formal meetings they can have with these prospects at the combine, and they've met with 3 of Bo's former teammates at Oregon, Zach, including his bro, Tez Johnson, who we can get into later, had some interesting things to say. But they're definitely at least exploring the possibility of, as they're building the nest around Bo, trying to prioritize some familiarity, I guess.
I love what Tez said too. I mean, he brotherly love at its finest. He's sticking up for his bro, defending him, and I just love the different. And we'll talk about this as the pod goes on tonight. But to me, the takeaway was like the different culture that the Broncos have among prospects, among other players, among media members. It's just a much more positive influence. And yeah, they're making some moves at wide receiver too, some draft meetings. Tez, middle round prospects, if they can get him, another weapon in Bo Nix's arsenal.
Absolutely. Let's get into what he said. So this is, well, let me get back. Instead of, you can't really trust the Wi-Fi, whether we're at the convention center where all this stuff goes down, or if we're back at the hotel. It's usually more stable at this Hilton that we're staying at, for what it's worth. But you never can quite trust it. So I'm trying to have as few tabs open as possible. So I'm looking to my phone for some of this stuff, whereas I would normally be just tabbing it on my computer. But okay, where is it? I'm trying to find the Tez story, dude. Start offensive line, Genty. Why am I not finding this? What the heck, dude? Why? I'll find it. But Zach, oh, here it is. Here it is. Sorry. So here's what he said. This is rad. Of course, he gets asked about Bo Nix. How was he surprised at all, or what do you think of his rookie season? All that. Quote, like we always said in our family, haters are going to hate. I mean, Bo does what he does. A lot of people think in the beginning, oh, wow, this kid is not as great as everybody thinks he is. He's the best quarterback in the draft. That's why you picked him in the first round. And I'm glad that Sean Payton got him, because he's the first one who took a chance on him. Literally the best quarterback in the draft. I don't know what else to say about him. He's one of those guys who's going to win. He knows what he wants. He'll get in there for a year, and he knows exactly what he wants. So kudos to Bo, and kudos to the Broncos for giving him a shot, close quote. So, Zach, it's kind of like our little catchphrase. Let him hate.
Yes.
Haters going to hate.
I love it. Best quarterback in the draft. And I know it's his brother, but just to hear someone talk about an upcoming prospect, a very talented prospect, talk about Bo Nix like that, I really like it. And I don't want them to draft him just because of familiarity. They may have made that mistake with Troy Franklin, but Tez Johnson on his own is a damn good football player, and he can help out this offense a lot. Would not hate it at all. We'll see if they link up again in a couple months, Jed.
Oh, dude, it would be awesome. As I said when I got back from the Senior Bowl, Tez Johnson reminds me of just a smaller Emmanuel Sanders. And it's going to be interesting to see how they test, because the receivers are running tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I want to say, and then O-line and everything is Sunday as far as the on-field stuff. Phil, by the way, what's up, bro? So good to see you down in Tucson. Sorry we're having the main page Facebook problems again. Something to do with Facebook, guys, or StreamYard, or whatever StreamYard's, how it communicates with Facebook. So appreciate you being with us, my friend, and finding your way to the stream. He says, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Found you. Can't wait to get all the latest news for our Broncos. # Buckham. Thank you, buddy.
Thank
and
you,
also
Phil.
Shouts to Patrick Wiltsey. Aloha, right back at you, brother. And Michael Ronquillo, saw your comment. Sorry, we were kind of lost in the conversation, but thank you for being with us tonight and throwing down. Let me see here what Mr. Producer's saying real fast. Yeah, 45 official interviews. And the Broncos, Zach, have used quite a lot of them on running backs and tight ends. I think it was Andrew Mason who did the math saying something like a third of those interviews so far, Zach, have been strictly on running backs, tight ends.
As they should be. Sean Payton talked about it. George Payton talked about it. The biggest offseason need, as slippery as it may be, as elusive as it may be, as rare as it may be, is that joker. We're all tired of that word. I get it, but we're going to hear a lot more of that for the next 6 weeks or so. So just get used to it. They're on the hunt for it. There's one in this draft. We don't know because we don't have a crystal ball yet, but they're going to find that guy. And they might have already met him, Chad, through this week.
Indeed. No, geez, come on, Facebook. Why do you got to make it so hard to just get it done? I just shared the pod stream on the main Facebook page, but yeah, it's going to be fun. I think if you could get Tez Johnson, I mean, right now he's basically viewed as like a fringe 5th round pick. I see him mocked in the 6th round a lot, but depending on how he does this weekend, how he does on the field, I could see him climbing around maybe 2, but probably the best he could do is just kind of sneak into round 4. And I don't know how much the familiarity thing would really help him, as far as Bo Nix, just because he had 2 years worth of experience thrown to Troy Franklin, and Troy was kind of slow getting going. But at the same time, what was unique about that is both of them were rookies. So they were both managing their own massive pro learning curve. Whereas Tez Johnson or Terrence Ferguson, who's the other one, the running back, James, Jordan James, if they were to land in Denver, Bo Nix would be a year ahead of them, having things slowed down quite a bit as we saw down the stretch. So maybe Tez Johnson would work out better out of the gates, is all I'm saying, than Troy Franklin did.
Yeah, I just don't think you draft him strictly based on familiarity. I think that might have been why the Broncos traded up for Troy Franklin. And I get Troy Franklin's skill set. It's great, but that chemistry didn't amount to much in the NFL, Chad. It took a while for them, and hopefully it'll pay off. But if the Broncos deem Tez Johnson worthy because of another quality, not just because he's Bo Nix's brother, then maybe not in the 5th because they don't have a 5th, but I would take a middle round dart throw on him for sure. Great prospect.
He's kind of an underdog right now, if we're being honest. And he'll hear his name called on draft day, but he's an underdog, and we always want to pull for underdogs. And right now we're getting our football fix, but hey, there's no football to actually be had. Basketball, however, is still rolling, and that's where underdog fantasy comes into play. When your favorite star scores a bucket, slam dunk, we're giving you an alley-oop opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog obviously is one of the leading sports apps you can play now in your state. If you want to win up to 1,000 times your money, you can if you get started with Underdog.
To play, choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats like points, assists, rebounds, and more. Underdog's got all your favorite teams, leagues, and stars to choose from. Create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 just with your hoops knowledge.
I've had so much fun with Underdog since we teamed up with them, and it came into my orbit, 3 months ago. You can too. Download the Underdog app today. Sign up using our promo code MHuddle to unlock that special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Again, download the Underdog app, promo code MHuddle. Qualify for that up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
All right, guys, back to the conversation at hand. Some hellos. What's up? We got Leroy from Facebook. What's up, Football Priest? I'll say Priest. I think that's what you meant. Tight end class 40 times. We're kind of slow, but hey, if those guys can get open separation, run crisp, that's all that counts, right, guys? Yeah, I mean, I still have my draft. One of my draft crushes is still Jake Brenningstool, and he'll be a mid-round pick, but he met with the Broncos, Zach, for what it's worth. I asked him both at the Senior Bowl, and here at the combine. So he's a sleeper guy. But the more we got to talk, I mean, we felt this way and we've been talking this way on the podcast for better part of a month. But talking to these guys, seeing how they're testing, the more we inch closer to the draft, Zach, the less panicked I feel about the Broncos needing to go tight end in round 1 or 2, because there are some guys. Are they going to draft, the next Jimmy Graham? Not necessarily, but there are some bona fide tight end options that are clear upgrades over what the Broncos currently have. Brenning Stool's one of my guys, but yeah, Warren, he'll be gone. Loveland, that shoulder, that is going to scare some teams, dude. Like he might fall. He actually might end up falling more than people realize. What are your thoughts on that?
He said he should be good to go by training camp. So hopefully no harm, no foul there. He tested pretty well today. He's a big target. I mean, he looks the part like a future NFL star tight end. Would not mind at all if that's the 20th overall pick. But I was going to say the Broncos are in a very fortuitous spot, Chad, because they need a running back and tight end. Happens to be a historically deep draft class, arguably at both. If you needed a quarterback this year, not too fortuitous, but the Broncos don't. So if, like you said, they don't get one of those guys in round 1, they don't have to sweat it. They don't have to reach. They don't have to draft for need. It's really a sweet spot for the Broncos at 20.
Great question, though, Leroy. Great to see you tonight, big dog. The GLP, Gary Palmer, checking in with the super. Thank you, bro.
Thank you, Gary.
Very appreciated for your football priest out on the road. Says, hey, guys, just a little love for doing your job. You have our back, and we appreciate it. Yeah, buddy. Thank you. It means a lot. Seriously, Gary. It means a lot to us. So thank you, buddy. And we know, even if it's $1 somebody throws down, let alone a generous super chat like this at $20, man, that's a huge show of support and belief. And just that contribution, we take it very seriously, and we're very grateful. So thank you, bud.
We will always have your back, Gary. We will always fight for you as your football priest. Thank you so much for your generosity. True OG, always appreciated. Thank you.
Scott saying, Lil Jordan Humphrey ran a 4.75 at the combine. Brenning Stool is the big slot, the LGH replacement. I would love it, dude. I would love it. You know this, Scott. I would love it. It will, and turn on his highlights and watch some of his cut-ups at Clemson. He's an interesting player, but so is Elijah Arroyo. I like him a lot more, Zach, than Harold Phantom from Bowling Green.
Same.
Once you get past the top couple guys, that is. But, yeah, the Broncos, they're definitely in the running back and tight end market. And it's not just it's a good time to be in that market. But, Zach, just to shift gears for a second, another rumor that broke, one of our friends who happens to be an insider that covers a different team brought to our attention the report of the Broncos. And we had a story on this earlier in the week from a rumor we picked up while we were here. Credible rumor, okay, that the Broncos were not really in on Deebo Samuel, only to find out today that they were at least interested enough to pick up the phone and check on it. Now, how much do you read into that? Because we know, as George Payton has said, we want to be in on every deal. But could there be more to it?
Took the words out of my mouth. I imagine the conversation went like this. Hey, John Lynch, would you take a 7th-round pick for Deebo Samuel? No? Okay, bye. They have to do it. They have to check in, Chad. Doesn't mean that they're interested. Ultimately, you have Marvin Mims on the roster. It's a great class if you need a joker. Oh, I said it again. Running back, tight end, wide receiver. So I'm passing hard on Deebo Samuel.
Our Niners publisher, our Niners guy here at On SI, Grant Cohn, what's funny about this is, I don't know, like an hour and a half maybe before that news broke, and this came from today, Jordan Schultz. But Grant goes, what do you think? You think the Broncos are in on Deebo? And I was like, I don't think so, just based on the latest reporting, what we'd heard, and then, the fact that they have Marvin Mims Jr. waiting in the wings, really starting to come into his own the second half of the season. We've heard Sean Payton praise him to no end this offseason. So that Mims factors in big. But I guess, hey, we want to be in on every deal. We at least want to check to see what the cost might be.
Right.
You can never have too many stud playmakers.
It's just, if he's not on the field, he can't be a stud playmaker. If he's complaining about his contract or whatever, can't be a stud playmaker for you. There's just more bad than good, I feel like, with Deebo. I commend the Broncos for checking in. They have to do it. They should do it with everyone. But they're not all that interested, was what the original report stated. And I think that report is pretty accurate.
Just to switch gears here for a second. Well, let me first just check on Mr. Producer. Yeah, that's true. Not a super strong quarterback class. The guys at the top, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, we got to hear from them. Who do you like? I mean, we're not in the quarterback conversation, but which of those guys, like if you were one of these quarterback desperate franchises in the top 5 or 6, who has the best chance of being that franchise game changer?
Well, the friend that you were talking about a few seconds ago, we were standing in the media pit scrum today, and we were talking about Sanders and highlighting a couple of things that we don't like about him. So I guess if I had to choose Cam Ward, I think he's just a better pure passer. I think his makeup is more transferable to the NFL, at least if he wants to be a long-term starter at the NFL level. I'm not that high on Sanders. I know it might be blasphemy around these parts, but I think Cam Ward will be a better pro.
Yeah. It's negligible, but I agree. I don't know. There's something about Sanders that makes me a little bit nervous, but he had probably the second biggest media scrum so far this week. The first being, of course, Travis Hunter, where I felt like I was maybe at a Pink Floyd concert. Time to whip out the lighter and be like, yeah, comfortably numb. Oh, wait a minute. It's Travis Hunter, Matt Fisher, Luke Lackey, Caleb Johnson, Deion Walker. Hey, that's a fine trio. We got to talk to Caleb Johnson earlier today. The Broncos have a lot of options, Zach.
And it's so fortuitous. I mean, there's running backs that would go in the 4th or 5th, 6th round this year that would be second-round picks in other years because of just how deep this class is, and they're going to come away with one. And again, it's kind of frustrating being this far out, not knowing who they're targeting exactly, not knowing who they're going to end up with. But one of these guys in a very talented class is going to be a Denver Bronco, much better than what we had to suffer through last season.
Yeah, Walker, though, that's one of those sleeper priorities for the Broncos is defensive line. And, more and more, Nick has been kind of thinking last couple anyway, of his mocks, he's got defensive line heavily featured. And, we got to see their on-field testing yesterday. That was really interesting. But don't be shocked if the Broncos, use some of their draft ammunition to bolster that D-line. Not just because, obviously, what we saw with the Philadelphia Eagles, not blitzing once, getting pressure with 4, and utterly confounding and just smackdown on Patrick Mahomes, but they got to preempt what's going to come here. They got to get started bringing in some bodies because the 3 guys the 3 reliable veterans they have under contract are all going to be free agents after this season. So you got to have some contingencies. And even though it's not exactly a position, Zach, that gets people like super psyched, I'm not sleeping on it possibly being the first round pick because, again, it's such a deep class at some of these other sexier positions and the tight end, running back, wide receiver that they can afford to do something different in the first round.
Yeah, and just because it's not as big of a need as running back or tight end doesn't mean it's not a need at all. So the Broncos still have to address it, have to address inside linebacker. You can use a safety. You can use maybe another corner. And they want to talk about going down the middle and building up a defense that way. George and Sean Payton both talked about inside linebacker, what they're looking for, what their preferred makeup is. So don't sleep on defense in this draft just because the Broncos need more offense.
Also, the other running backs Max, what's up, dude? Up in Canada, north of the 49th parallel, #state of being, baby. Great to see you. Thank you, bud, for the super.
Thank you, Max.
Says, evening, gents. Keep doing what you do. Go Broncos. That we shall, my friend.
Sir.
That we shall. But I want to talk about a couple of the other running backs today that were really interesting, like Quinshawn Judkins, Ohio State. Him, Henderson, they kind of shared a thing. What do you make of him as a prospect relative to the Broncos?
I think that's a sleeper at the running back position. A couple dominoes would have to fall for the Broncos to get him. Namely, they would be passing on the tier 1 guys like Jensen, the tier 2 guys like Henderson, and they would have to neglect the position that long. I just don't see him doing it. But if they double dip or if that does go that route, Judkins fits the mold, I think, of what a Sean Payton running back is, with the ability to catch, run, pass protect, be a 3-down running back. Wouldn't hate it. Can't have too many playmakers.
I wouldn't either. I like him. that's crazy. His 1 year at Ohio State, kind of being maybe not necessarily calling him second fiddle, but only 194 carries, over 1,000 yards, 14 touchdowns. And then he also caught 22 balls for another 161 yards. And he was interesting. The other guy that, when you're at the combine, they roll them out in little zones. So you'll get, how many stages are there? 8?
Yeah,
plus
8 podiums.
Plus the little side table. So,
yeah.
You can try and jump in on each one and hope you can get a question asked or overhear something. But you really have to kind of prioritize which guys you're going to go try and talk to or listen to. One of those priorities for us, like today, I wanted to spend some time with Devin Neal, but it just did not end up being in the cards. But the one guy that also impressed me a lot today was Omarion Hampton, who I think could sneak into the back of the first round, definitely second round conversation. And you want to find a joker guy, someone who can do everything. That's a candidate right there.
I would not be surprised if by the NFL draft, Hampton's stock is that he's being talked about as a first round pick, no doubt, and maybe even the 20th overall pick to Denver. But as I put Judkins in a bucket, I said, if these things would happen, well, if the Broncos traded down from 20, moved down 5 spots, picked up some capital, Hampton would also make a lot of sense there as well. You could argue that Hampton is the RB2 in this class behind Genty. One of the 3, though, could very well be wearing a Broncos uniform in 2025.
Another one of the guys that we weren't able. Oh, Robert, what's up, bro? Great to see you. Hey, thank you for the super chat, my friend.
Thank you, Robert.
Says, love from Nevada. Thanks for the reports, boys. Thank you for being with us tonight. Kind of keeping you on your toes, surprising you, getting you an MHH pod on a Friday night. One of the guys that we ended up juggling too many stories and things that had to get written, but I wasn't able to talk to Cam Scatterbo. Did you hear anything about him on the formal meeting front?
He did meet with the Broncos. He was one of the several running back prospects that did. Again, another dart. What is it? What is the expression, Chad, about having something in the iron?
Irons in the fire.
Irons in the fire. Thank you very much. That's another one. You can argue whether he deserves to be ranked among with the Hendersons and the Omarion Hamptons, but if they do wait a couple rounds, Scatterbo is another option for sure.
Robert, dude, thank you, pal. So good to see you. Let me see what Shiloh's saying here. The fact that we could end up with some combo of a Loveland, Arroyo, Helm, Brenningstool, Taylor. Yeah, that's the other one. Mason Taylor. And, I love Betch. The Jack Betch, who's like a big slot. He's like borderline tight end. I've seen people assert that that's something he could project at the next level, but says it's very, very confidence-inducing for the floor of our tight end room. Dude, I would love to see Jack Betch. He was the Senior Bowl MVP. He was impressive the whole week, too, by the way, in practice. I would love to see that TCU big slot, 6'1". I forget what his weight is, but he's a big boy at his size, and he uses his body well. He's always going to be the guy that comes down with the ball. So I could see him. I don't know. I don't know if he's quite tall enough to really be a tight end and vie in there, but he's scrappy enough, Zach.
Sure, he's a little better than Lil Jordan Humphrey. I think that should be the bar, so he can jump over that. And, I wouldn't be surprised. You might get your wish. The Broncos could double dip. Could take Loveland, at 20 and then reach in the middle rounds for another one. All you have is Troutman, and then who else? No one. That's the answer.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what his Jack Betch's what his measurements were at the Senior Bowl or here at the 6'2", 260. There, I think he was more 6'1" and change, 216. Really interesting player, and he also has suffered recently from tragic loss. That unfortunate attack that happened in New Orleans. His brother was one of the victims, sadly. Thank you, Scott. 6'1" and a quarter, 212 officially. So, don't sleep on that name, though, because he also strikes me as a guy that would strike Sean Payton. Like, we know how much the taller profile, like, I don't know, the visual of the big, what we think in our heads is like the big X, like Cortland Sutton, basically. The Cortland Suttons, the Devon Velays, those guys, Sean Payton likes them. And even though Betch isn't quite that tall, I mean, he plays like it.
Throw it up and he'll come down with it. He's one of those guys. If he's tall, if he can catch the ball, I sound like John Elway, but if he can just play, then I want him on the field, Chad. It comes down to that. I don't care what his title is necessarily, what his position is. If he can play, if he can help out Bo Nix, I want him on the Denver Broncos. 4
extra pounds, by the way, for Jack Besh at the combine. He weighed in at 216. Thank you, Scott. What do we got here? Camden. Oh, by the way, Todd, good to see you, brother. Austin Dorff in the house. Camden, I think Travion Henderson from Ohio State could be the next Alvin Kamara for Sean Payton's offense and would be a great fit for the Broncos in the second round. Absolutely. I just don't think he'll be there at 51. So in the same way that 2021, the Broncos packaged a deal to move up and grab Javonte Williams in the second round, I could see it potentially happening. But if you really want to make sure, and look, early in the week, talking to guys are like, yeah, maybe like fringe first rounder. Today, just after hearing him talk and stuff, guys, the tune changes. They're like, I could see him sneaking in 2021. A couple of teams that are running back hungry. So, but by the way, the reason Henderson, did he meet with the Broncos, etc., why I mentioned earlier what a little ambiguous, it was actually Cecil Lammey, 1043 The Fan, who asked him the question, but it was a two-part. And the two-part started with comparison to Alvin Kamara. I can't remember exactly what he said, something maybe like, did you model your game after him? And then closed with, and have you met with the Broncos? And so he went on to talk about, how much he looks up to Kamara and some of the similarities in their game. And then he goes, and also I met with the Saints. So, you could forgive him if he thought the question was about the Saints, right? Like the two-part, but there's a few different ways if you were there that you could have read it, but it was ambiguous. So I'm curious if I've been so busy on the keyboard all day. I'm not sure, but if there's been any other reporting on whether or not Henderson has officially had a formal interview. Cecil and I, we were on the fence.
There's a universe that exists where the Broncos end up with Loveland and Henderson in rounds 1 and 2. And that would be the dream for me. That would be fixing the offense in 2 moves. But like you said, more than likely, I know running back is a devalued position nowadays. There could plausibly be multiple running backs that end up going round 1. We mentioned Amarion Hampton, obviously Genty, and also Trey Henderson. I think he's going to test going forward really well, interview going forward really well. And if the Broncos want him, like you said, Chad, they might have to move up either in round 2, high in round 2, or maybe back up into round 1.
Yeah, he's such an interesting player. And I agree with you, Camden. I could see him doing Kamara-like things in a Sean Payton offense. So thank you for that super chat, Big Dog. Really appreciate you. Okay, guys, it's kind of late here in our neck of the woods, so call this the 2-minute warning. Any burning questions, supers, get them in the chat. I want to grab this from the Ronk. Miami tight end Elijah Arroyo will have to sit out for 1 year to work on his route tree. They don't think he's a day one starter in the NFL. Well, I mean, tight end's one of those positions, if you want to talk about they don't think he's a day one starter. It's one of those positions that they say can take a couple, 2-3 years to ripen on the vine. And, the Brock Bowers of the world, they're the exceptions that really prove that rule. So it wouldn't matter which guy they draft, even if they end up getting, Loveland, health willing, or even Warren in the first round, or an Arroyo a little bit later. That guy in year 1 is not going to be as impactful as he's going to be in year 2, year 3. History tells us. Now, again, Bowers showed that there's going to be some exceptions to that rule. So that would not preclude me, though, what I'm getting at here, Mike. That would not preclude me from taking Arroyo, depending on where it's at in the draft.
Listening to him speak, it's obvious that Arroyo considers himself the best tight end in the draft. And I do like the confidence. It's what I would want from one of my prospects if I'm looking at him. But again, we mentioned this with running backs too. Same thing with tight ends. Such a deep class. If they don't get Loveland or Warren, no sweat. You can move on to the plan B, plan C, plan D. That's what's so great about it.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Ronk. I'm just checking here to see if there's anything interesting we haven't grabbed. Matt Fisher saying, if I could pick any back in the draft, I would want Henderson from Ohio State and Caleb Johnson or Judkins. All good options there, buddy. And again, rejoice. It's a good year to be in the running back business. And Brashard Smith also had a very interesting, Jason, thank you for bringing this up. Running back had a very interesting meeting with the Broncos. He spoke to it quite a bit, actually, in terms of, them talking about how he could fit into their offense and just a little bit more in depth in terms of what transpired. Like Genty was pretty clipped about it. I mean, mentioned a couple things. Most of them are, unless you really put the screws to them. But Brashard Smith is another guy, sleeper. He's a guy I could see helping himself a lot this weekend too, Zach, inching up the board a little bit.
And another guy, again, I hate to sound so repetitive, but you miss out on your guys or you go other directions in the first couple of rounds. He's sitting there in round 4. Not a bad consolation prize. He probably would be a second-round pick in a different draft. Very talented, intriguing skill set.
The Ronk also bringing up South Carolina safety Nick Emenwari was a freak on the 40-yard dash, running a 4.38, 11.6 broad jump, 43-inch vert. Yeah, dude, he's cemented probably, Zach, I doubt he'll be on the board when the Broncos are on. I mean, the Broncos do have low-key safety needs. They have a guy currently under contract. We'll see if that changes by March 12th in PJ Locke. But they're looking for upgrades. That we know for sure. And it's a question of what kind of resources do you want to invest in the position. You could go out and splurge, right, on the Dolphins kid, the Niners kid, yeah. Holland, and what's the other dude's name? I'm so tired. Yeah, thank you. Hufanga. Or you could spend a premium capital on a first-round pick. But, yeah, that kid, that Gamecock safety, dude, he's the truth.
If the Broncos didn't need a running back like they do, a tight end like they do, I'm tired with you, Chad. I would say he's an option at 20 if he's on the board, but you just can't prioritize safety over giving Bo Nix a weapon that he needs. Not wants, needs.
Shouts to David. Thank you, pal. Saying good evening, gents. Everyone hit the like button. Yes, thank you, Ronk, on Emenwari. Shouts to Big Earn. What's up, brother? Good to see you. Bo Nix for 6. Right back at you. Broncos country only from Big Earn, and we love it. We're here for that. Jason, I want to grab this. His new mock has Genty going 6 to the Raiders, Hampton 12 to Dallas.
Wow.
That would be disappointing. Yeah, but it still keeps Henderson in play. Genty's going to be – I just don't think he's going to be there at pick 20 unless you want to trade up. But – yeah, Zach, in the On SI publisher mock, and our friend who is the publisher on the Las Vegas Raiders beat is a bona fide insider, Hondo, right? Like he's Hondo Carpenter. We had a lot of fun with him this week. Such a good dude. One of the best dudes in the biz, by the way. And in the On SI publisher mock that dropped on Tuesday, he also had the Raiders taking Genty at 6, so we'll see.
I mean, he's going to go before 20. He's saying it. Everyone knows it. It's the worst kept secret in the NFL draft. He's not going to make it that far. It would also keep potentially Loveland in play if that scenario were to transpire. It might even keep Tyler Warren in play if the draft was shaken up like that. Ultimately, we'll see how the chips fall, but it's almost like a win-win, Chad. If the Broncos don't get one of their running backs of choice in round 1, they could get their tight end of choice. They're going to come away with a major area of need being filled.
I'm looking to see here if this was a name mentioned by Trickle in the – because, dude, we've been so busy on the articles, I haven't had time to see how everybody's tested. But Fisher's talking about Stutzman, the linebacker. And, look, I haven't spent time watching him, just to be frank with you, but Broncos, Zach, have big needs at linebacker. I mean, from the outside looking in anyway. George Payton and Sean Payton, for what it's worth, they didn't sound on Tuesday too panicked about linebacker. True. And they really pushed Drew Sanders forward as, we'll see how it goes, but we view him as a starter, officially confirmed. He's moved back to inside linebacker, and that started toward the end of last season when he came back from that Achilles. But your thoughts for Matt?
Yeah, good point. They not only moved him back inside, they put that very specific comment out there, and they know what they were doing by saying that. Now, their motive still remains unclear. It could be a smokescreen, but they like Drew Sanders. They believe in Drew Sanders. They want to get the most out of their investment with Drew Sanders, which I totally understand, and I hope he does meet that investment. But there's Nick Bolton entering free agency. Zach Bond, if he gets out of Philly, he's going to be a free agent. That's where I would think they would go to fill that need as a veteran, plug it before the draft, and then focus elsewhere. But we'll see what happens.
Thanks for being with us, Matt, and some really good questions and topics tonight. I think Ronk, thank you, buddy. Great show tonight, Chad and Zach on the MHH podcast.
Thank you, Ronk.
Go Bo Broncos. Thank you, buddy. There's going to be a lot more combine coverage and takeaways coming from MHH because it's not over yet.
Yep.
We'll be there tomorrow and then basically head home. But next week is going to be a lot of conversation also about things. I mean, it's happened so fast and in real time. It's kind of hard to remember everything we want to talk about, but
True.
That's why we lean on you guys because you have the questions and they trigger the answers and bring things back. But before we dip, we do have a few messages for you. Let me get that for you. There you go.
Appreciate it. Another tremendous episode of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please give us a follow on X at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle. You can follow Chad on X at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and don't forget about Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. If you want some MHH merch, you know where to find it, mhhmerch.com. Get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like, a follow on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, you know the drill. Subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
That's right, guys. Appreciate you making time for us this evening. Not used to seeing myself and Zach on a Friday night, but hey, it's fun to keep you on your toes a little bit, give you some extra MHH pod episodes. A mile high salute to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters helping us keep the lights on tonight, like the Papa Bear, David McElrath, the Ronk, Phil McLaughlin, Patrick, what's up? Gary, Matt Fisher, Max Rio, Robert Otteson, Camden. Thank you, buddy. I think we covered everybody. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind, lots of fun, and we'll be, like I said, lots more coverage coming on what we learned and gleanings and other things from the combine, stretching all the way into next week. So,
yep.
Lots of fun, brother.
Yes, sir. Have a great rest of your weekend. We will talk to you soon. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.